We are here. We are here. We are here. I cannot tell you how excited I am to have my man, Mr. Brian Benstock, on today. Intimate interview, him and I, one-on-one. We're going to dive deep into some subjects, some topics, some different things that you're going to want to know about, some things that you're going to need to learn about. We're going to talk about the future. We're going to talk about the present, the market, and what it's looking like today. Is it terrifying? Should you be scared? We're going to talk about that. We're also going to talk about the psychology. What makes winners? What makes champions? How do you build championship teams? We're going to talk about that a little bit today. We're also going to go into some different, I've got some different books that I know Brian is a fan of, and hopefully we'll be able to extract some of his wisdom from there. So we're going to dive into that, all of that here in just a second, as I want to introduce you to Mr. Brian Benstock. I'm going to go ahead and show you a video that he recently posted that will give you a better taste of what we've got. While that video is running, do me a favor and hit that share button, because we want to make sure to get Brian out to the world. This is wisdom and nuggets. Typically, you would have to travel, you'd have to pay high dollars to go sit and get an opportunity to learn some of the things that you're getting ready to learn from Mr. Brian Benstock. But we have an opportunity today. He is sharing his valuable time with us. So as a thank you to that, let's make sure to hit that share button, get this out as far and wide. Also, stay tuned to the very end. We are going to have a giveaway here at the very end. There's some information I want to give you about the Grow Your Business for God's Sake conference, but we'll talk about that towards the end. Until then, let's run this video, and then we will bring in the one and only Mr. Brian Benstock.
Google's fantastic. They want to work with us to serve. Their whole mission is to make it easier for people to get what they want and to make the distance between those 2 points as short as possible. And so we started working with Google, and I'm pleased to say we developed the first voice technology transaction in our industry with Google, and it works. And it really works, and it's kind of fun. We thought that Paragon Direct should bring all the services directly to the customer whenever, wherever, however they access the internet 24 hours a day. Because when is Google open? Can you imagine if you did a search at 2 o'clock in the morning and said, sorry, Google's closed? Well, you want to compete with these guys, right? I don't want to measure myself against other dealers. I want to measure myself against Google. Oh yeah, Google? Let's go. Let's go. I got you. Oh, you got billions of dollars? That's okay. I'm working on it. Amazon? I'm working on it. And so we have to be open 24 hours a day. Amazon serves you 24 hours a day. I know everyone says it's not possible, but we tried. Hey, that's Manhattan. A Honda dealership went out of business in Manhattan. If you had to put a Honda dealership in Manhattan, where would you put one? Where would you put it? Let me ask the question differently. Shoals, Starbucks, where would he put a Starbucks? Where would he put one? Every freaking corner of Manhattan, right? So that got us thinking, why don't we do the same thing with Paragon Direct? And so we developed with 4 different companies a way that we could serve customers using the mobile device. And we solved for one problem. They said, yeah, but how do they pay for it? We had to solve for that. How do you give transparency? We had to solve for that. And we used existing technology to give the customer very much like an Uber-like experience, picking up and delivering their car to them. And they could do it all on the phone. And we expected that we were going to invest some money here, and we expected that we would get customer loyalty. You can all get excited about customer loyalty. We never, what? You're going to get customer loyalty, but we never expected what we ended up getting. And this was a Frankenstein model that we stitched together. And we took a page right out of Uber's book, right? Using RedCap, we showed them who the driver was and where the driver was going to be. And the customers were already used to using this technology. So it wasn't new to them. We didn't have to teach them. We didn't have to build it. We didn't have to invent it. It was already out there. And the people were used to it. And then when we said you needed front brakes, and they said, would you like to buy them? We showed them a picture of their old brakes that were really skinny, and we showed them a picture of the real brakes that were really fat, and we said, you got really beautiful kids. Would you like to buy brakes? And they said, of course. And then when they clicked that, you give them a little Amazon of their own. People who bought this also buy that. And the people, they've been trained by Bezos. Just keep pushing the button. No, that's not the one. Glenn, can you hear me? Good. What the heck? What the heck?
Oh, there we go. How about now?
I can hear you just fine now, Glenn.
This time the technology problem was on my side. I had muted it during that intro.
Great. And you know what you had me doing? You got me moving everything around, right? And I'm moving everything around to make sure that it's not me.
Oh
So
my gosh, I apologize. We did all that testing right before. Everybody, this is Mr. Brian Benstock, Vice President and General Manager, Paragon Honda, the #1 Honda dealership in the world. He's also my dear friend and just a forward-thinking innovator that has been disrupting the automotive industry. He's doing amazing things out of New York, and I am so excited to share him with you today. We're going to deep dive, go into this guy's brain, extract all that we can and learn as much as we can today. So do me a favor, if you haven't already, hit that share button. Mr. Brian Benstock, thank you so much, sir, for spending your time with us today. I know how valuable it is.
Glenn, it's an incredible pleasure to be here with you. And man, it is exciting to watch your meteoric rise to where you are. This rise and grind has turned into something really special, and I'm really happy to be here with you today.
Hey, thank you, my man. Thank you. You've played a big part of that as a mentor, educating me, continuing to push me, putting your foot up my rear end when I need it, in the places that I need it. So I appreciate it. But I want to dive right in, Brian. You are a reader. You love your books. When I went to New York this last time, I jumped in your car. You had books sitting right there on the console. So I thought we'd start this interview off with doing a couple things, a couple little fun things, something a little unique, a little bit different. And so right out the gate, I'm going to give you the title of a book that I know you've read, that I know that you've found value from. And I just want you to can you give us like the biggest nugget of wisdom that you took from that particular book that you want to share with everybody? You ready? You think you can handle it?
Man, talk about being put on the spot. Yeah, okay. Go ahead.
I told you we're going to do something a little different with Brian today that you've never seen. So book #1, the title is Relentless. What was your biggest takeaway from Relentless?
You know, Tim Grover's book, Relentless, is one of those that had a deep, deep impact on me. And, you know, the biggest impact for me, the biggest takeaway for me is the truly greats are not scalable. The truly greats are never satisfied. The truly greats are always looking for whatever that next level is. And, you know, when we talk about Michael Jordan, who a good portion of the book's about, it's a completely different level of the game. There's a lot of players playing in the NBA. There's only one Michael Jordan. And I think in the book, Tim Grover does an incredible job of dissecting what that cleaner mentality is, you know, and so the takeaway for me is to always be looking for that next level and not be satisfied. And I think it can be very difficult to be around people that are cleaners because they are just never satisfied. They're not taking time to enjoy the flowers. That once they hit a target, it's always what's next. And the more I look at those individuals, the more I want to be more like them, but within my respective profession.
Yeah, man. Yeah, man. Always looking for the next level. There truly is no finish line. And that's such a key point that I think a lot of people miss. I think a lot of people are headed for the target. They've got their eyes on the finish line. And then once they get there, that's where they fall off. But not a guy like Brian Benstock, not a guy like Tim Grover for sure. Definitely not a guy like Jordan.
Hey, remember my friend David Spisak, what he said at a meeting we were at earlier this year? He said it's a lot more difficult to stay at the top of Mount Everest than it is to climb Mount Everest. And I think that's one of the things that, you know, I really took to heart, that, you know, you get to a certain level and staying up there, I find the only way to stay up there is to continue climbing. And so, you know, whereas Mount Everest has an end or a top, you know, the industry and the business that we're in, there is no end, there is no top. We can always
continue to climb. And that book, Relentless, got dropped on me in 2016 when we were, quote unquote, at the top of our game at Paragon. We won every award you could win for the Honda store, most every award you could win on the Acura store. And I saw our team starting to get a little bit soft or complacent. And the really great thing is that book got dropped on me, and we got back to reinventing ourselves and going to hopefully the place that we're going to go to next.
Yeah, man, I absolutely love that analogy. Difficult to stay at the top of Mount Everest. You got to keep climbing. That is beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. All right, I'm going to drop another book on you. You ready? I think you and I have never talked about this one, but I'm assuming you've read it just from what I know about you. So, Shoe Dog, Phil Knight.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a fabulous book. I mean, again, and these guys, you don't know if I've read it, but here it is, right? I'm blessed to have these books delivered to me by other like-minded people. Nike continues to do what they've always done, right? They initially invested in what is this? Steve Prefontaine, who was a radical runner from the 70s, radical in every way, shape, or form, and he made running a full contact sport. In fact, one of his quotes is, "You're going to have to bleed to beat me." And I love that mentality. But look at what they're doing today with Colin Kaepernick, right? And there's a lot of controversy with Nike supporting Colin Kaepernick, and there are people that are abandoning the brand. And I would say they're being true to themselves. They're being true to who Nike always has been, which is a little bit radical. And how can we be angry at Nike for understanding their audience? Their audience are urban African Americans, urban Hispanics, and urban Caucasians, and they're catering to their base and their audience. So when they do something that we consider radical and support Colin Kaepernick, their sales go up 30-40%. So they know just what they're doing. And really to see these guys, skunk broke guys, creating a shoe company out of a garage. How many of those stories do we have to hear about and say, hey, before we say, hey, I can do that too.
That's right. That's right. And that's one of the beautiful things that I found about that book as I read that book, is I felt that I can do that too. I can do that too. If he can travel around the world and figure these things out and go up against the fights that he had to go up against in order to become the empire that they are today, I can do that too. But I love that the key takeaway is they always stayed true to themselves, even to the point where they didn't want to go public. They had the opportunity to go public multiple times, over and over and over, but he was afraid that they would lose the essence of the company if they went public. And so he held on as long as he possibly could, maybe a little too long at some points, but it ended up working out.
Yeah, it sure did. It sure did.
So amazing. All right, I'm going to hit you with one more. I know this is one's a really good one for you. Can't hurt me.
Come on, man. I want to say I discovered David Goggins. That guy is just out of control. And I credit and blame Goggins for my exploding knee last year after listening to, I guess, one of his YouTube videos. I went out and I ran 3 days in a row, but I ran a completely different, I've got this Relentless thing and Goggins meet in my head. And I'm not 26 years old or 19 years old. I'm 58 years old. And I went out and I ran 3 days in a row like a monster, then Peloton like a maniac. And the next day I went to the hospital. So, yes, you can hurt me. But David Goggins is a complete and utter inspirational story that I think we can all relate to. Getting called names as a kid. I grew up in a school district where, I don't know, I thought I may not have been, but I think I was the only Puerto Rican in the school, and maybe there were others. And kids used to make fun of me. My mom used to wear like one of those, I guess it would be called a schmata on her head. And they told my friends told me my mom looked like Aunt Jemima. And, it's just like, whoa.
Right.
And how do you turn that into energy and turn that into fuel?
Right.
And his story is much graver than that, the things that he was exposed to as a kid. And, I think that the takeaway is we all get this stuff. Every kid growing up, you're tall, you're short, you're fat, you're skinny, you wear glasses, you don't wear glasses, your hair's straight, your hair's crooked. Another crazy thing, when I was 13, I had a bushy afro. And I couldn't stand having a bushy afro. So my mom took me to a place called Ali's Straight Shop to get my hair straightened out. and I got my hair straightened, and my hair all of a sudden was long and straight, and I looked like I was Asian. And the crazy thing, and it only dawned on me later in life, that right next to Ali's Straight Shop was a place where people could go to get a permanent. And isn't it really a strange thing that the people with straight hair are paying to get curly hair, and the people with curly hair are paying to get straight hair?
Right.
And the lesson there, I guess, is, hey, be proud of what you've got and make that work. And Goggins' book continues to inspire us and the team to that 40% rule, that whenever you think you're at the end, there's another 40% there. And I was pushing it so darn hard after reading his book that I literally tore up my knee, and used his book as a recovery, and I'm back running again. Can't hurt me.
Well, I'm glad you're back running again for sure. But
you
hit the nail on the head, turning that pain into purpose, right? Yeah. Taking those painful events, the experiences that we went through, and turning that into your purpose and turning that into your fuel, realizing you have 40% more. But then I think you also hit it when you said, be proud of what you got. I think a lot of people struggle with that.
So many of us don't appreciate what we have in the pursuit of what we want. And you know what I think is really important, and I'm going to drop a book on you. This is by Professor Scott Galloway, and it's called The Algebra of Happiness. And this is an owner's manual for life. And I think many people think they've got it figured out. This guy is a hero of mine, Professor Galloway. He's a complete beast disruptor, NYU professor. And his book, The Algebra of Happiness, is really what it's all about. You got to be happy being who you are. What's the purpose of the big car? What's the purpose of the big house, or whatever it is that motivates you? It's really just hopefully to find happiness. And he outlines, the no nonsense way to get there. And basically, in your 20s, don't diversify. Work your butt off. That you want to be an entrepreneur. Well, you got to learn how to sell. And how many people in the automobile business are ashamed to say that they sell? They're ashamed to say that they're salespeople. And you ask Buffett what was the most influential book in his life, and it was How to Win Friends and Influence People, and his ability to learn to sell. One of the richest men on the planet. It's all about selling. And so you ask salespeople, what do you do for a living? And they say, I'm sorry, what's that? And they're not proud of what they do. So how the heck are you ever going to be successful? Where did Michael Jordan make his money? Playing basketball? No, selling sneakers.
Right.
Sneakers. Dr. Dre, first billionaire rapper. Where did he make his money? Not music, selling headphones.
Right.
So a salesman. And whether it's headphones, speakers, a car, sneakers, we're salespeople. We're going to be proud of that. Or let me give it a better word. We're not salespeople. We're influencers. You feel better now? Because the whole deal about influencing is the ability to sell. But the millennials can't deal with, I'm not a salesperson. I'm an influencer. Really? What's the difference? Tell me the difference, hotshot. Nobody wants to see what you're dressed like or wearing. You got to sell. You got to sell. To sell is to be alive. And sell is not having stuff, people buy stuff. Selling starts when people say no, when the customer says no. I got to sell my boss. I've got to sell investors. I've got to sell the staff on whatever the ideas are. You got to sell the factory. You're selling all the time. And this notion about retirement, the more I get around successful people, none of them have as a goal retirement. None of them.
None.
So if you want to be successful, you got to take that goal, the goal to retire, and you take it and throw it out. That's not a goal. You'll never be successful if that's your goal. If your goal is to lay on a beach and relax, then you're the wrong person. Okay? The goal is always to be contributing, to be adding, to be putting more on top of what you're doing. I want to go to heaven and say to God, I'm exhausted. I'm exhausted. I don't want to get up there well rested. That's what heaven's for. Come on, man. I love in Goggins' book when Goggins talks about how he dies and he goes to heaven. He says, I don't know if you believe in God or you don't believe in God, but when I get to heaven, God's there. And at one point he was like 300 pounds. And God says to him, hey, David, you were supposed to be a 180-pound runner, inspiring and motivating the whole world. You were supposed to be a SEAL and a ranger and all this other stuff. He goes, I want to get up to heaven, and I want to get up there as a SEAL. and a motivate. And God, I want God to say, "Oh my God, we knew you were going to do this, but we never expected you to do that." He wants to, in essence, over-index what the Lord's plans are.
Right,
Which that's
right.
really, that's awesome, right? That's
That's an
awesome.
incredible mindset.
He's got something up there in store for us, and you get up there and you can't wait to meet God because you're like, dude, I know you wanted me to do this, but look what I did. Isn't that cool? You over-index the Lord. Now, I think that's pretty special.
I think that's really special. I think that's amazing, man. I think that's amazing. Like, you are so on point. As I have traveled, especially over the last few years on this journey, and I have hung out with, guys like you and Wolfington and the Donnells and everybody, you are so on point. The most successful people I know never talk about rest. They never talk about retirement. They never talk about finish lines. It's always what's next. Always what's next. Over exceeding the expectations of God himself. That's what's up.
Yeah, I think that's a pretty high and ambitious goal to over, because while he's paying attention to the rest of the 6 billion people on the planet, you just over-indexed. And I think that's pretty cool.
I love it. I love it. Hey, we're just a couple minutes in. Brian and I have been having some fun talking about some different books. He's already dropping tons of nuggets, tons of wisdom. So if you haven't done it already, hit the share button. Let's get this stuff out because this is valuable. Brian Benstock is a valuable human being on this planet, and I want to share him with as many people as humanly possible. So if you haven't done so already, hit the share button. Brian, let's talk about these books. You read, you retain, you use them every time I'm around you. You always have a story. Where did this come from? Who instilled this in you, this desire to read and consume information the way that you do?
I think insecurity had a lot to do with it. I got the job many years ago and I wanted to keep the job, and one of the best ways to keep the job was to continue to learn and to grow. And I think of every book as sort of like a brick in the foundation. And so at what point do you want to stop growing or building? And, hopefully the answer is never. There's information is coming at us so quickly. I think it's incredibly important to stay relevant and to stay on top of what's going on. And I understand also intrinsically that this game doesn't go on forever. That, I'm not going to be, I don't even know if I'm relevant now, but I'm certainly not going to be relevant forever. And so I want to make a contribution for as long as I can make a contribution. And sometimes, you read book A and read book B, and they lead you to a place, to book C. They lead you to what's next. And that information, I think, hopefully can enable me to do a better job leading men and women and hopefully making a contribution to this industry.
Yeah, man. You said one thing really powerful there. You said you got the job and then you wanted to keep the job.
Yeah. The interview, I remember interviewing with my partner who passed away, Paul Singer. I remember having a sweat ring under my arm down to my waist there. And when I got the job, I was so excited. And I completely didn't deserve the job. And he possibly didn't have somebody else for the position at the time, but I got it, and it was like, now what? And, I worked my tail off. I mean, I can tell you that I was working every hour, and I challenge anybody that worked with me in those days to call me out on this. I worked every hour that the store was open. Every hour. We were open 6 days a week back then, so I only worked 12 hours a day, 6 days a week. And then when we opened 7 days, I worked every single hour that we were open. Sure. And initially, it was, again, insecurity. I was trying to keep that job, and I was going to do whatever I had to do. And if I couldn't, if I wasn't as smart as other people that had the position, well, I certainly thought I could outwork them and out-hustle them. And then I found a really good combination is trying to outwork everybody and then gaining some knowledge. And when you get the knowledge and hopefully you retain the hustle, I think that gives you a sustainable competitive advantage. And I think at Paragon and in my life, I think that's what we're looking for is a sustainable competitive advantage. And that can be a challenge, right? Because today, if Rolls Royce comes out with a feature on a car, 6 months from now, it's on a Kia. Right. So how do you keep that competitive advantage? And in our business, if you have an online solution, you can't keep it secret. Somebody says to me, Benstock, you talk about the stuff you do. Why? How do you keep what I do secret? I mean, pick up and delivery. Well, all you have to do is go to our website, click a button, and it's there. I mean,
Right.
I want to make noise. I want people to know what we do, right?
Right.
I want them to use the service, and then I want the competition to come after us.
Right.
It's okay.
Right.
Because we're not stopping. The stuff I'm talking about is in the past. The stuff we're doing, we won't talk about. But what's
Right.
next is really exciting, Glenn. It's really exciting. It's really exciting.
I believe that it is. I like that. Knowledge plus hustle equals competitive advantage. You take the
Right.
knowledge plus the hustle, hold on to that, work your butt off, and you get that competitive advantage. I want to go back even a little bit further, though. Before you got the job, have you always been this way? Have you always been a reader? Have you always, is that something that's been a part of your life since childhood, or is it just something you picked up later?
Man, I wish I could say it was. I read. My son is like I was when I was younger. I read things of interest. At the time I played a lot of hockey when I was a kid, and I probably read every book that was written on hockey and taught myself how to skate, and I became pretty proficient playing in the junior championships in the United States. I was pretty proud of that.
Nice.
I taught myself to skate. I was a power skating instructor with Barbara Williams, who was the power skating instructor for the New York Islanders. So, I really read about subjects of interest. And I think that is what caused me to start reading about selling and success, because I wanted to become good at it. And there weren't a lot of people around that could spend the time. And I started consuming the books on wealth and how to be a millionaire and all those things. And, as I look at the library, and Glenn, if you got to go to my house and look at my library, you'd look at the books there and you'd say, no wonder, because it's really a mosaic of who I've become.
Right.
When they say the only difference between you now and you 5 years from now are the people you meet and the books you read.
That's right.
And so if you want to see who I was, you see the books that I read that got hopefully made an impact on my life, and hopefully for the better. And now I just plain enjoy it.
Yeah.
You see Warren Buffett reads 500 pages a day still, and talk about Relentless. A gentleman like that is out in his 80s buying 72 car dealerships at one, with striking a check for the stores. I mean, he's not done, and so the stuff like that turns me on. Like, at what point, when people say retire, I see retirement as the finish of making a contribution to others, right? And when do you want to stop making a contribution? I don't. A little relaxation for sure. Smell the coffee and the flowers, and don't miss the kids growing up. That's true.
Sure.
But to stop making a contribution, never. Now, it may look different for me in the future. I may be making a contribution from a sailboat,
Right.
but I do want to continue to make a contribution for the rest of my life.
I completely understand that. I'm with you there. So that makes sense. And the reason I wanted to kind of draw that out real quick is just to help people understand that it can start now, right? Just because you haven't in the past lived a certain way, or you haven't in the past been a reader, or that wasn't necessarily your skill set or your strategy, doesn't mean you can't start today. And the books you read and the people you hang around are going to determine where you're at in 5 years. That's just fact. There's no disputing that. And I would love to see your library in your house someday. We'll have to make that happen next time I'm out in New York.
We can make that happen.
Let's talk about the market today, Brian. I know that you've got your pulse on the market. You're collaborating, and we see you doing things with Google. We see you doing things with Facebook and Amazon. You're disrupting the auto industry. You're creating new ways of thinking there in your dealership and kind of across the automotive industry as a whole, because people are watching and people are following. And so you're making that impact. So today's market, obviously there's a lot of technology, there's a lot of things shifting, there's a lot of things going on. I want to know, honestly, from you, is today's market a deadly situation for those that don't have their pulse on things? Is it really as scary as some people are making it sound? or where are we at?
No, I think it's much worse than people are making it sound. I think it's much worse. I think there's going to be winners and losers. You've had a dealer apprised me of a fact, and you have to fact check this, but I think it was South Dakota used to have 600 automobile dealers. Today they have 80.
Ooh.
And nationally, I can give you some facts that have been sourced. We used to have 47,000 new franchise dealers in the 50s, and now we have somewhere around 17,000. And that decrease in headcount of dealers is going to accelerate as the major consolidators take over. And that's not all bad news. That's not all bad news. Those of us that are able to and prepare for the future, I think are going to be able to come through and be even stronger. But let's talk about why, right? Means of distribution have improved. And, in the 50s, think of a car dealership. Car dealership was a guy who had a gas station, or a woman had a gas station on a good corner in town, and somebody with a franchise came by and said, "Hey, would you like to be a Chevy dealer?" And they said, "Sure." And they put 10 Chevrolets on the gas station corner, and they were a Chevy dealer. And then what eventually happened is somebody figured out in town, let me move that from the corner to a better lot, better location, more space. And then in doing that, they closed down 2 or 3 of the other gas stations that were selling Chevys. And that happened across the country, right? And we haven't seen a major change in that until more recently. And now as the publics are coming in and consolidating what they're doing, right, and organizing it a little bit better, as it's becoming more and more difficult for the mom and pop dealers to compete against the publics. The business is so capital intensive that people are starting to ask themselves, if I have the money to compete in today's market, do I really want to put that money, that capital, at risk? Now, we're in New York City, or we're just outside of Manhattan. We're 2.5 miles out of Manhattan. The Honda dealership in Manhattan's gone. The Acura dealership in Manhattan's gone. The Nissan dealer in Manhattan's gone. There's a Hyundai dealer 3 miles south of me that's gone. There's a Kia dealer that was attached to it that's gone. And this is in what we could argue is a very good economy. And if you ask President Trump, it's the best economy ever. I'm not in a position to say whether or not it is.
Right.
But it's a good economy, but by all the normal measurements, yardsticks, the unemployment's relatively low, interest rates are relatively low, unemployment is relatively low, access to capital is relatively high. So those benchmarks all speak well for the economy. Yet we have 11,000 stores closed in the past 2 years. 11,000 retail stores closed. 11,000 in the past 2 years. Something's going on. I made a video that I'll share with you, Glenn, driving from 57th Street in New York up Madison Avenue to 70th Street. So what is that? 23 blocks, right? Mm-hmm. 23 blocks. There were 27 stores for lease. This is Madison Avenue in New York City. Wealth capital of the world, of the country. And there were 27 retail shops available. This is last Saturday.
Wow.
So stuff's going on. So in your question, do I think it's better or worse? I think it's worse than what people are talking about. I think there's a lot of good things going on, but I think the smart money is on caution right now. I think the smart money is on fiscal responsibility. I think the smart money is on training and the fundamentals in our business. Those fundamentals are never going to go away. Galloway speaks in his book about Google having some of the best algorithm products on the planet, yet they still have to hire tens of thousands of people to sell what they do, right? And it doesn't make any sense. If it's the best platform, and it is, why would Google have to sell it? Because people need to be sold. So that speaks well of the future of the retail automobile salesman and woman. There is a future for you if you learn to sell. There's no future for the order takers. There's none. You will provide no value. You will not have a job that can sustain you. But for the professional, the person that knows how to go out and hunt, like Eric Thomas, I was listening to this morning, he talks about what lions work. The lions work whenever the gazelles are out there. That's their hours. And they don't stop until they catch a gazelle.
That's right.
It's in nature. We understand. The average person can say, well, yeah, if the lion doesn't catch a gazelle for a couple of days, he starves and dies, or she starves and dies. So you got to be on the hunt. But what do you think happens if you're not hunting for customers?
Right.
You starve and die.
Right.
Or or more likely, you take a job where you can get a minimum, or you can get a guaranteed wage, which is never going to be satisfactory for you in order to survive. So those of us that have learned to hunt, learn to go out and catch the food, or in more acceptable terms, to serve others. Well, those of us that have learned how to do that will never starve, right? And you got to be both, right? A hunter and a farmer. The hunter goes out and gets his food, and the farmer plants the seeds for later. And I think the smart money is, again, going to be on those that are investing in their future, their database, their customer, their portfolio, and while they're out grabbing the fresh food for today. You need something that you can do today, and you need something that provides for your future. And I think that's where the smart money is in selling.
Wow, man. Wow. That's those are some crazy numbers. From 600 dealers down to 80. From 47,000 new down to 17,000. You've got
it's like a slow moving boat that's coming right at you. It's moving slow, and you say, hey, it looks like, and next thing you know, boom, it'll run you over. It's an iceberg that's moving, but it's moving slow, but it's moving.
Right.
And I wouldn't say an iceberg moving too slowly. But I'm a sailor, and it's the boat you don't pay attention to is the one that you end up crashing into.
Yeah,
right? And
no doubt.
They don't go real fast, but they're coming at you.
Crazy, man. Crazy. 11,000 in the last 2 years. I mean,
stores, regular retail stores in the United States of America, and arguably one of the better economies. Right? What happens when the poop hits the fan? If 11,000 close in a good economy, what's that look like? What's that number look like when interest rates go up a little bit, unemployment bounces up a little bit, stock market drops 30-40%? What happens to those numbers at that time?
Right. And you mentioned the consolidation. So the big players just kind of swarming them up, right? It's like this. It's like that. What was that game? There was like an amoeba game where this big blob just kind of would move and just start to eat up all the little small globs. So the commerce itself is not going away. It's not like the products, the sales, the economy, that's not dissolving. It's just kind of getting absorbed by these bigger forward thinkers, right?
Forward thinkers with the capital. The dealerships that closed in Manhattan, they didn't close because there was no demand, but the demand wasn't equal to the expense structure. And the manufacturers are going to have to change too, right? Manufacturers have to realize that some of the requirements on facilities are going to be too onerous for a lot of dealers. And maybe that's their plan. To shake out those entrepreneurs, the mom and pop stores. Maybe that's the plan. I don't know. I can't say I understand what's going on there, but we have accurate dealerships and accurate dealer friends of mine telling me that my God, the cash flow issues are just incredibly difficult to absorb in their stores today, with the reliance on incentives and waiting to get your money 2, 3, 4 months. If the average person understood just how much capital is involved in running a business today, an automobile dealership, if the average customer understood that the dealers are working on 1%, 2%, or 3% margin at most, they'd probably look at it a little bit differently. And if I looked at this business, getting into the business again, would I get into it right now? Boy, that's a question I can't honestly answer. I'm in it.
It's tough out there.
Think of Mike Tyson, right? Would Mike Tyson recommend that his son become a boxer like him? Hell no. He knows what the sacrifice was. Knows. And I think there was an interview I saw, I think it was Joe Rogan, where he was speaking just about that he goes, hey, listen, my son will never be able to do what I did because he didn't come from where I came from. Tyson came out of a really desperate situation.
Sure.
And so that in whatever way, put a stamp on the person that he is. And my son can never be like me because my youth was different than his.
That's right. That's right.
And it doesn't mean he cannot be better than me. I hope that all my children have a better life than I have had.
Right.
But it's it's going to be very different, because the path that I traveled is my own path, and they're going to travel their own path too.
And timing is everything. I was watching a TD Jakes video the other day, and TD Jakes was talking about how Colonel Sanders, if he would have came out with Kentucky Fried Chicken today, in today's day and age where everybody's vegans and counting calories and worried about cholesterol and all of these things, he never would have had the success, with coming out with this deep fried chicken. But he actually came out in a time where women were just starting to go to work. Right, the women were starting to hit the workforce, and the families needed these meals, and so that's where he decided to take his chicken and take it to the level that it's at today. So timing is certainly 100% key, and I want to make sure that people don't miss this. I want to make sure that people understand that we can talk about a store shutting down, we can talk about a dealership going under, we can talk about those things on the surface, and it's almost like when we talk about war. Okay, well, so many, we lost so many soldiers or whatever, it kind of gets numb to that. But I want to make sure that people don't miss the fact that these are human beings' lives. These are their dreams. These are their investments. These are their people that went out and they took a chance and they built these dealerships or they built these businesses and they gave it all they got. They put in their blood, sweat, and tears. Like, these are people that are getting swallowed up in this, people that are not adapting, people that are not doing the training, the studying, the education, and keeping their pulse. And that, to me, friends, from the outside looking in, is why a guy like Brian Benstock and his stores are continuing to grow and thrive, while some of these shops around them are shutting down. So you mentioned briefly, you're not sure if you'd go into the car business right now, but let's just say business in general, okay? Let's just say, whether it be a car dealership, something else, if you were starting a new business today, what are 3 things that you would attack right out the gate that you think would give a solid foundation for a business in today's market?
You've got to make some noise, right? You've got to get out there. And if you have a product or service, the marketplace will tell you whether or not that product or service has value. And if you do have a product or service that is of value, you've got to make some noise. And there's never been easier to make noise than with one of these. You have access right now to Instagram and to Facebook and to LinkedIn. And these platforms are, I'm going to use the F word, they're free. And they're absolutely and if you don't take advantage of a platform that's this powerful, that's free, well, you're not going to survive. And, again, people would say, well, no, it's a boost, you've got to pay. And that's true. But the cost to boost to a targeted audience is so negligible that it's actually free. And it won't be for long because, they're going to continue to bump up the cost. I think the government's going to continue to put privacy restrictions on the big companies. That may be good, it may be bad. I'm not quite sure yet, but they're moving to a European model where we're not going to have the same access to consumers that we have now. There's never been a better time to be an entrepreneur than there is right now. That being said, entrepreneur is really a synonym for salesperson. You've got to sell your investors. You've got to sell your customers. You've got to sell the marketplace. You've got to sell the bill collectors. I'm coming. Don't worry. That check's coming, boss. I got that money for you.
That's right.
And Galloway talks about also, you want to be an entrepreneur, you got to learn to sign the front of the check, not the back of the check. The front of the check. On Friday, it's payroll. And you know what? And you know what happens on Friday? You know who doesn't get a check? You don't when you're an entrepreneur and you're starting out. Everyone gets paid except for you. And if you can't sell and you can't hack that, you're better off getting a job working for somebody else. There's nothing wrong with that. But being an entrepreneur also means you're going to have public scrutiny, and your failures are going to be big, and they're going to be in front of everybody that you said, look at me, I'm starting a business.
Right.
And 95+% of the businesses that start go out of business. So it's really an interesting dichotomy. And what you talked about, businesses closing, there are real lives behind those businesses. So they're real people. And sadly, some of the businesses are legacy businesses where the father was in business and the father before him was in the business. And the current market doesn't care about the legacy, unfortunately.
Right.
The market cares about what's most important to them, which is them. And if you're not providing value and service, it's not relevant what you did or your family did 60 years ago. I'm thinking one in particular, a dealer that closed, that family was in business for a long time, and then the son-in-law took over the business, and he did okay, but he never learned the business from the roots up. He sort of started in the middle of the tree, and when things got a little bit shaky, and they're not really shaky, he had to tap out.
Right.
And so that insecure person that got started and started reading books in the 80s to get more secure is still here. I'm still insecure. I'm still reading the books. I don't want it taken away. I want to keep the edge on. I want to keep an eye on what's going on. Understanding that you take your eye off the ball and you can get hit in the face with that ball. So you got to pay attention. You got to pay attention.
No doubt. So that would be our step one. We got to make sure we make noise. We got to make sure. I'm going to go with step 2 is making sure that we're training and absolute professionals. What would be the third one? If you were in a new business right now today, what's the third thing that you would absolutely make sure you did to get off the ground?
Proper capitalization. You got to have capital. We all hear about these stories of people starting out with $100 in their pocket out of the garage and becoming billionaires. Assume that's not you, because it's not going to be you. Okay. And again, there are those 1 or 2 people that do that, but that's proper capitalization, and you need to have your own money in there too. Having somebody else's money in there doesn't count.
Sure.
Because when you have somebody else's money in there, for me, if I have somebody else's money in the business, I'll pay more attention to it than even if it's my own. But for the average person, you need to have skin in the game, and you need to have your own skin in the game to make sure that you then invest that wisely. And again, you're an entrepreneur, you're starting a business, be prepared to work 70 to 80 hours a week. This is no 9-to-5 gig. That you cannot have an entrepreneur outlook with a 9-to-5 mindset. You will not survive. This is not a 9-to-5. How many hours do you work in a day? All of them. How many hours you work? Whatever it takes. And those words that are being said so often by great people like Eric Thomas, whatever it takes. And you get people out and salespeople say, I'm going to do whatever it takes. Tomorrow, I'm heading to the pub. That's not how that works. It's not how that works. People will see this podcast that we're doing now and think, Ben Stock's goofing off. I'm not. I hope my people will watch this, man. And understand. And it's today's a 10, 12-hour day like any other. And I'm working less than I used to, but it's still 10, 12-hour days that are there. And my partner's in her office now, and she's working, and she doesn't need to work. Let me assure you, she does not need. But she doesn't know any other way. Her husband was that way. It's just that's what she knows, and God bless her. And some people say, well, you should be doing this, you should be doing that. She's doing exactly what she wants to do.
That's right.
And I'm doing exactly what I want to do. I'm where I want to be. I got a nice sailboat sitting out east, and it's a beautiful day outside today. I'm where I want to be, man. I'm happy.
That's it. I love 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 learning from you. I love watching you. I love that drive. I love that dedication. You mentioned Eric Thomas, and I want to let everybody know real quick that you should see in the comments, you should see something that says growforgod.com/bonus. And the reason that's in there is we have put together a conference August 16th and 17th called Grow Your Business for God's Sake. And this guy, Brian Benstock, that we've been talking to for the last, I'm not even sure, I'm not keeping track of time on this one, but we've been speaking with Brian Benstock. Brian Benstock is one of our keynote speakers. He's going to be opening up Friday night, August 16th at that event. So what I thought that we would do is I knew Brian was a fan of Eric Thomas. Him and I have both been diehard fans of Eric Thomas for a long time. And luckily, we've had the pleasure to be able to shake his hand, to be able to spend time with him. We were able to speak together at the Paragon Awards, the amazing event that the President's Award that Paragon received. We got to speak together at that. So we've had some experiences with Eric, and I actually got to do a coaching. I did an 8-week course with Eric Thomas. And if you click that link right there and you get your tickets today to the Grow Your Business for God's Sake conference, you're going to get the recordings of that course that I did with Eric Thomas. You will get those recordings absolutely free. We're just throwing them in with your ticket purchase for Grow Your Business for God's Sake. So that's what that link's there. It's in the comments. It's pinned. weekend. It's rolling up. Brian, we need to wrap this up. I want to ask you two more questions, and then I'll let you go because I know you're busy. The first thing I'd like to ask you is, what is the future? What does it look like, Brian? What's it look like 10 years from now?
I have some friends that are very smart and they're very rich, and I have the answer to that. I've got the answer. In fact, it's right here. The future looks pretty much the way the past looked. It's difficulties mixed with opportunity. That's what the future looks like. There are going to be difficulties, and there are also going to be opportunities. And I think if we can not be too afraid of the difficulties, that we miss out on the opportunities, I think we'll do well. And those of us that have prepared, by tightening up the riggings on our ship and making sure that everything's right now and repairing the roof while the sun is shining, we'll be in a better position to take advantage of those opportunities. Because there's a bubble forming always, and there's a bubble popping always. And so when the stock market bubble pops, and it will, there's bound to be some opportunities. And when the dealer shakeout happens, and it is, there are going to be some opportunities there too.
That's beautiful, man. I love that. Difficulties mixed with opportunities, just like the past, right? No different. It's just a matter of who moves in.
Man, when was the easy time in life? It's no time. The generation now thinks that these are difficult times. We had 12 years of never-ending growth. That's not going to last forever. And I don't want to be the prophet of doom. I hope it does last forever, but the odds are not in favor of that. I think President Obama did a good job with a very slow and steady growth pattern over 8 years. I think President Trump has accelerated that. And again, I'm not being political here. One side takes credit and blames the other. I'm not going to do that. I think that there's been a nice natural progression here, and we've got a solid foundation. But these patterns don't last forever. And
right.
I'm afraid that some of the softer generation today might not. A little bit of a pullback is going to cause them to really be in some distress. And that I don't want to see that, but that's inevitably what's going to happen. And when when that distress comes, that's the time you and I can pick up that fancy car if we want for 50 cents on the dollar.
That's
The
right.
time we can pick up that fancy watch that somebody can't afford anymore, and we're helping them by buying it at 70% off.
That's right.
And again, and I'm not talking about material things. There'll be other opportunities. I don't need a car. I don't need a watch, but there will be opportunities to acquire, whether it be businesses or real estates, or even in the acquisition of capital, human capital, because that's where some of the businesses that have employees there will make some cuts, and inevitably some good people will be cut. And I want to have my ship strong enough so that I can take those people on and welcome them to our ship to help us in the next growth cycle.
That is incredibly valid. Not really a thought. I've never really thought about it that way, as far as the human capital.
Sure.
That comes from that, because there's the strong, there's the hard workers, there's those guys out there that we all wish were on our team, and when things start to go awry, that's a great opportunity. That's huge, Brian.
Can I be direct with you? I mean, there are people now that are getting paid really 1.5 to 2 times what the job should pay, and so in a dealer, to keep them, it's relatively good times, pays them more, and then pays them a little bit more to keep that person. And unfortunately, when there's a pullback, those people tend to be the first to get let go. And so there's an opportunity to right size that person and to get that person on your team for what would make a number that would make sense. So unfortunately, in every difficulty, there's an opportunity, and I want to make sure that when there's a difficulty, that I've got my eyes open to see the opportunities.
Beautiful, man. Beautiful. Love where your head's at. Love your mind. I'm going to ask you one last quick question. You and I are going to be together August 16th and 17th in Nashville, Tennessee at the Grow Your Business for God's Sake conference. You're going to be on stage. You're going to be dropping some knowledge, dropping some wisdom. I know you have a lot of opportunities out there to do things. I know a lot of people ask you to speak and share your valuable knowledge. Can you drop for the people that are watching that are thinking about attending the event, can you maybe share with them why you decided to be a part of this particular event out of all the options that I know that you have out there?
Well, there's no shortage of you're asking me questions I'm not prepared for, huh? The number one reason is you. I mean, frankly, it's you. You've been a great associate, and I've asked you to come to Paragon to talk to our people. And other than my buying you a glass of wine, you haven't asked me for anything to do that. And so I think certainly I can give back to you. But then it's a different audience there, and I think that I'm preparing my presentation. My presentation is going to be about over-indexing, so that when I meet the big guy upstairs, my partner's there. My partner's high five and be like, "Nice job. I knew you'd do well, but not this well." and God's right behind him saying, "There you are, man. You did it. Whatever it is, you did it." And high fiving. So I think there's a lot there. I'm secular. When it comes to business, I do certainly believe in God, but I try and keep that private. But I do think that this is a good format for me to talk about. Hey, and the people, we're going to die. We're all going to die. And when I die, I'm going to meet those people that have been in my life, and I certainly want them to say, "Hey, wow, 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 wow." And whether that's my grandmother, my grandfather, my business partner, and it's going to be all of them. That we can then at that time relax. Now's not the time to relax.
That's it. Brian, thank you so much for your time, man. I know you're rocking and rolling. Thanks for the nuggets. Thanks for the gold. Thanks for the wisdom. Hang on just a second. I'm going to sign out of this here. I will sign out, and then we'll close out on the live, and I'll come right back to you. But thank you again. It's been an honor spending this time with you today. I truly appreciate you.
My pleasure. Thank you. I appreciate you too.
And that, my friends, was the amazing Mr. Brian Benstock, Paragon Honda. He's the man. If you're not following Brian already, I need you to go do that. You can look him up. Obviously, he's on Facebook. He's on LinkedIn. He's got a great presence on LinkedIn. You can follow him there. I need you to follow him. I want you to support him. I want you to root him on and encourage him. He's an amazing human being. If you haven't done so already, make sure you hit that share button. Let's get this out there so that everybody can enjoy in this information. And also a reminder, there's a link pinned in the comments. It says growforgod.com/bonus. If you get your tickets today to the Grow Your Business for God's Sake conference that we've got going on in Nashville, Tennessee, August 16th and 17th, if you get your tickets using that link, you will get the Goalkeeper recordings. It's an 8-week program that I did with Eric Thomas, the #1 motivational speaker in the world. You will get those recordings absolutely free. So make sure you get your tickets. Come join us at Grow Your Business for God's Sake, Nashville, Tennessee, August 16th and 17th. And you can learn even more from Brian Benstock as he talks about over-indexing, exceeding what even God had planned for you. What an incredible opportunity. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We'll see you tomorrow morning, 5:30 a.m. on #Rise and Grind.